Right, hi, good morning. It's Sunday morning around about, well, it's actually Sunday afternoon, it's just gone 12. Originally did do a video yesterday, but I think it was a little bit soon after the race, and typically after the race we get a lot of feedback, comments, which are not always reflective of how the majority of the ownership feel. So I had planned on addressing them one by one and going through them all, but sleeping on it and 24 hours later, I think the best way is to address what the majority are asking, and they individually respond to some of the more negative, and I'll deal with them separately because I don't think they're reflective of what everybody's feeling. So we're going to try and keep this as brief as possible, but also answer everybody's questions. So if you look at the last week, Monday Wolverhampton and then Friday at Hamilton, a lot of people have been asking why we're not running at Bath next week, or this week, in a race that Born to Finish won last year. Before we went to Wolves, as we've been mentioning in the videos, Ed's wanting to go over 7 with Born to Finish. He feels he'd be better. He feels that he couldn't go the pace early at Goodwood. He couldn't go the pace early at Brighton. To a degree, although he broke well at Windsor, they got away a little bit from him even at Windsor. And even through his whole running style, through his career, it's not always just been the fact that he started slowly. It is a case of, on occasions, they just get away from him. He comes out the stalls okay, but then he sometimes wheel spins, and it just takes him a few strides to get in a few strides to get into his to get into some sort of speed. And on certain occasions, they're just going to get away. Now, when he's running against horses rated in the 50s, as he was in the early days with Jeremy, or horses rated in the 60s, as he was in the early days with Jamie, he can catch them up and he can travel well, and his greater ability, his little bit of class is going to carry him into those races and get him in a position where he can then finish and see the race out. You may recall that over the years, all the trainers have used similar wording in the respect of, it's not as if Born to Finish quickens in the way that typically a sprinter would. A lot of owners use words like, "Oh, we haven't seen his turbo boost," or "We haven't seen this lightning acceleration." If you look at his sectionals and look at his timings, the races he's won have generally come because he is gradually getting quicker and quicker and quicker as the race goes. He's going better the further the race goes, and when they've gone very quick up front, they stop. They can't see the race out. Now, on tracks like Kempton or Newcastle, Lingfield to a degree, they can stop when they're in front. Now at Bath, the horses go very, very quick and they stop. This also ties into the whole thing of whether he needs to go on a straight course or a bend. Around a bend, they go quicker because they have to. If you're on a straight course and you have 4 or 5 potential front runners or horses that like to be prominent, on a straight course they can all go out, find their own position, and they spread out if they need to. You can have 2 or 3 can go alongside each other. On the all-weather tracks or on the tracks with a bend, Chester for example, the horses are going to go quick because they need to get into that bend in a prominent position instead of they don't want to get caught wide, or they don't want to get trapped in behind. So all of these different intricacies need to be taken into account, and by the pure nature of the fact that this is a sport, and you're dealing with animals, and you're dealing with human jockeys, and you're not dealing with a computer-generated game or running races on paper, you are not always going to be certain of how a race is going to be run before you go. So what you do in the planning stage is you try to get as many factors in the horse's favour as you possibly can. And you base that on, in the early stages, you're going to base it on breeding, you're going to base it on family history, you're going to base it on what the horse has shown at home. Once you learn and you see the horse on the track and you see what works and what doesn't work, you start to take things out of the equation. He doesn't stay 2 mile, for example, or he doesn't stay 1.5 miles, or he doesn't stay a mile, depending on what the horse. And as you go forward, if something works, you replicate it, and if something doesn't, you try not to repeat it. But then you throw in the factors of, if something doesn't work, why didn't it work? Was it the ground, or was it the headgear? Was it the headgear, or was the horse just not quite feeling it that week? Was there a virus in the yard? Was the yard out of form? Did he come up? Did he run? Did he win a race? But everything behind him was no good at all. So therefore, he's being slightly flattered, and you take the form where with the proverbial pinch of salt. Or has he finished second to a horse that's going to win the next 5 races? All of these factors need to be taken into account. Now, I have the luxury of being able to spend more time than your average racing follower going through the races involving the crowd racing horses than most other people. Probably to a degree even more so than the trainers, because the trainers have so many other horses as well that they have to look at. So I feel that from a form perspective, I have a good angle on what these horses can and can't do. Whether that is Arishka or Born to Finish or DTNE or even El Ray in these early stages, whichever horse, going back through all the older horses too. Now, Born to Finish has predominantly ran over 6 furlongs, and he started off his 2-year-old career where he was bred to be a miler, possibly even slightly further, and he worked in the early stages as a horse that was going to need that to show his true form. This was reflected in the fact of, one, he wasn't an early 2-year-old. He didn't come out and run until September of his 2-year-old year. And when he did, he came out over 6 furlongs at Kempton on a slow surface. If Kempton hadn't been riding as slow, by memory, and I could be wrong with this, we're going back a few years now, I'm pretty sure Jeremy wanted him to go over 7 straight away. His second run was over 7, as was his third and as was his fourth. After his fourth run, it was obvious he wasn't going to win a maiden, and therefore the decision was made that there was no benefit in not gelding him, and gelding could improve him, so he's gelded, and coming back from the gelding, he did show a bit more buzz, a bit more pace about him, and the call was, let's bring him back and start him over 6. He ran well over 6. He then ran well again over 6. And that continued until he had a run at Wolverhampton in a race that we felt he should be winning, when he just got going far too late and ran on late. He was up to a mile and it didn't work, just didn't seem to work. Now, I can't remember the exact logic behind it, but that was a 1-race experiment. We tried him once, dropped him back to 6, and it wasn't great. Although the race at Haydock that he ran in over that 6, he was when we first discovered he had a wind operation. Now, I'm not going to go back through the whole life of Born to Finish, but what I'm trying to articulate is Born to Finish has ended up being a 6 furlong horse and running over 6 furlong more by default than ever by plan. And I'm not trying to sound that it was an accident. It clearly wasn't an accident, but he was started off to be further. After he was going over 6 again, we tried to up him. As soon as he went to Jamie's, after he'd had, his last 3 runs with Jeremy, weren't great. He wasn't moved to Jamie because of that. Obviously, he's moved because Jeremy was going to Australia. Otherwise, he still would have been with Jeremy. But we went to Jamie, and the first thing Jamie said was, this horse needs further than 6. He's not a sprinter. Now, Jamie's a good trainer. He's a very good trainer. He knows what he's talking about. But what we said to Jamie is, look, keep him over 6. Let's run into what we know has been working, and then we can talk about it. We ran him twice over 6, and it didn't go great. I remember being at Newbury myself, and it just wasn't great. There was a degree of the draw not was factored into it. So we said to Jamie, right, let's try 7. 3 runs over 7, and again, there was no massive improvement. Dropped him back to 6, and immediately there was an improvement. But was that because it was 6, or was it because it was on the all weather? It's, again, there are variables in there, either one of which could have been the solution as to where the horse was. Now, let's bring it back to where we are now. Towards the end of his career with Jamie, prior to the race at Kempton when he got injured, he ran at Bath twice in 4 runs on firm, fast ground. Now, all the experts he spoke to feel as though that those 2 runs are what contributed to his bone weakening and him then ultimately getting the stress fracture when his leg got stuck a little bit in the sand at Kempton and Born to Finish pulled his leg free, and it's caused the stress fracture. This happens, but I'm not keen on going back to Bath on firm going. Now, there's 2 reasons why we're not going to Bath next week, which is a question that's been asked a lot. One is the plan was to go over 7 and have the 2 runs before he went. 1 run would be at Wolverhampton, which we had, and the other run, which was going to be at Hamilton on Friday night, and then he was going to go over 7. Now, if the rain had come at Hamilton a day earlier and we'd been able to enter Bath, it might have been a consideration. But, could have, should have, would have. There's no way we could look at that. And knowing what we know from Bath last year, there is a real reticence to do that. Now, if he was going to stay as a 6 furlong horse, and the aim would be in the Bath Series final, it could be argued that there is a potentially a benefit in running him on a course we think is not ideal, because there's a target at the end of it. One run at Bath would be the maximum we would consider. And one run at Bath gets him qualified, but then doesn't run him in the final. He can't run in the final with qualifying, so that is a non-consideration. Just isn't in the equation anymore. So going back to where he was with Jamie, his last run. So this is after his break, when he had the break in March of 2018, and then he came back in June of 2018. He came back, and he was running in a mark in the low 60s, which is where he's probably going to end up now, but at the moment he's not. He's 67, so he's running in 0 to 70s, not 0 to 65. So there is a difference in grade. But he ran second at Bath, could be argued he should have won. Ran second at Brighton, could be argued he should have won. Ran second in Nottingham behind the Henry Candy horse when he was born to finish with 2-1 favourite, but the Henry Candy horse was well in and beat us comfortably, but it was still a reasonable run in second. Then went to Bath and won very, very well, in what, with hindsight, was a poor race, and he should have won. And whether that shows him as a 5.5 furlong horse, or a 7 furlong horse, or a 6 furlong horse, is kind of irrelevant. He was so much better. He was going to win the race. It taking too much from that as a benchmark going forward is not hugely sensible way to go. It just doesn't make sense, because what it does show is it shows on that day he was the best horse. It's not something you could use to measure any future planning for. He then went to Haydock again and ran what I feel is by far the bet, when his best run on turf. Although he only finished third, he finished third in a big field in a good race at Haydock. And if he'd had Richard Kingscote said if he'd had a better draw, he may well have even got that a little bit closer. Whether he'd have beaten the favourite, I don't know. But he's beaten less than 2 lengths, and he ran a good race. He's then gone to Kempton, and the rest is where we are now. Now, I've had a number of emails, people saying clearly moving to Ed de Giles was a bad idea because Ed is getting so much wrong, which is farcical, absolutely unbelievably wrong. People drawn a parallel to the form he had this time last year, i.e. the races I've just mentioned, Bath, Brighton, Nottingham, Bath. And people have relatively short memories, and I can understand why, because a lot happens. But this time last year, the emails I was getting were, he's finished second at Bath, horrible ride, never won Dougie Costello on him again. He then finished second at Brighton, Nicola Curry riding. Nicola's absolutely threw that race, what a ridiculous ride. Why is he running over this distance? He clearly needs further. He clearly is finishing the races too quickly. Bath's too quick for him. Brighton's too quick for him. We're wasting our time going there. Jamie clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. That's all the message I'm getting last year. This year, people are saying, well, Jamie's a genius last year. So which is it? Should he have won those races and was given bad rides? Or were they really good runs? The reality is probably in the middle. I think personally, he should have won at Bath. Dougie didn't get an ideal run. He ended up coming wide. If he'd waited a split second, he wouldn't have had to come wide, and he might well have caught that other horse on the line. Who knows? I don't blame Dougie for that decision on the slightest. That's racing. I think the ride at Brighton, I think that with the way that race panned out, I think he should have won 2 lengths that day. Would I blame Nicola? I don't think Nicola would do the same ride again now. I think she was a 5 pound claimer at the time. She's ridden a lot of winners since. She's a very, very good pilot, and she gave him a good ride. She just, when was given a split-second decision, she made the wrong one. We possibly made wrong decisions going to Wolves last week, or the wrong decision going to Hamilton Friday night. This is racing. Decisions are made every day. And I think what I would draw, if you want to draw a comparison between what Ed de Giles is doing and what Jamie Osborne's doing, I would absolutely draw a parallel to the first 6 races that Born to Finish had when he first arrived at Jamie's. And they were average, awful. Ed de Giles has had a decent run at Windsor, then a race at Goodwood where they got away from him, a race at Brighton where clearly the horse was choked and he needed a wind up. He's then come back to Wolverhampton and ran on through horrific kickback after missing the break badly behind a horse that's absolutely hacked up. Take the Dascombe horse out of that race, and that's not a bad run, and I would dispute that with anybody who thinks it was. It's considering the break, and yes, the break is something that shouldn't happen, but once it's happened, and you then see how the horses ran, it's not a bad run. Friday night, the lane needs to go through it. The ground was awful for any number of horses on that evening. And yes, okay, it does raise the question of why run. Well, once you're there, and he's gone that distance, and you're there at the course, and there's only 6 runners, there is no downside in taking your chance. The ground was safe, so we knew he wasn't going to get hurt. David was told before the race, if the race is gone, don't be too hard on him. Get him home, make sure he's safe. He hasn't handled coming there while David's had hold of him, so we have had comments saying, look like he's handling the ground, so how can he not be handling the ground? He clearly looked like he was. There's a lot more talented folk out there than me, because it's watching a horse run through on ground. It's I'm not hugely familiar with what I'd rather trust the jockey's feedback rather than what my eyes are telling me. And what David's saying is, when he had hold of the horse and he kept him on the bridle, and he was running within himself, he was going through the ground no problem whatsoever. But that was never going to win in the race. He was never going to win that race on the bridle. As soon as David gave him a bit of rein and asked him to try and stretch, and the horse then needed to in effect open his legs out a little bit, he became unbalanced and he was rolling around a little bit because he couldn't properly get a grip. When David's took him back on the bridle and he's brought him back in closer, how very random. There's a couple of horses just trotted past the window, and yeah, there's no reason. That's just strange. Anyway, brought him back in. He then travels again a little bit. At the end of the day, there was only one horse really handled the going on Friday night in that race, and that's the horse that I said beforehand that would, and it's the horse that won. There was the predictable non-runners, and Friday we just put a line through it. Now, going forward, the main questions seem to be 7 furlongs or a mile. Sorry, 6 furlongs or 7 furlongs, all weather or turf. The all weather and turf argument, I think we have absolutely done to death. The handicapper thinks he's better on the all weather than he is on the turf. His record says he's better on the all weather than he is on the turf. I will continue to argue that when he gets his conditions on turf, he is as good a horse as he is on the all weather. However, he doesn't get his conditions that often on the turf. It just doesn't happen because of all the other factors I spoke about any number of occasions. I base a lot on reins. He has ran at Haydock, he ran to an RPR of 76. He ran at Newcastle to an RPR of 86. So the handicapper's probably right. For what he's shown, he is £10 better on the all weather. That doesn't mean we don't give him an opportunity to run on the turf. Everything's relative in racing. Now, there's 2 ways of looking at this. Either he can run in the same grade of race on turf as he does on the all weather, but carry a lot less weight, which is a huge advantage, and therefore he in effect is hugely advantaged over the other horses, although some of that advantage should be negated by the fact it's a turf surface, not an all weather surface. Or we run him in lower grade on the turf, where he's running against horses that aren't quite as good. What we can't do is pick and choose the races absolutely perfect to suit Born to Finish. We have to choose the best possible race we can feel for him. So if we were to say he's never going to run on the all weather, he's only going to run on turf, or vice versa, then there's going to be big chunks of the season where he can't run. Now, I've had a lot of feedback in the last few days from people saying that they feel Born to Finish should be running more often, and that it's, we're waiting too long between races, and, they understand now that he might not be going to win every week, but they want to be able to go racing every week, preferably in the south of England. But they would, so again, we can't do both, and understand that there's horses out there, and you can pick any given race that Born to Finish has run in, or any of the other horses to come to that, but it's, And you look at it and you think, well, we ran on the 6th of May in a race at Windsor, and there's a horse in that race that's ran 8 times since then, and we've ran 4. And we feel like we're being cheated, we're missing out on opportunities to go racing. Well, we are going to look after Born to Finish because we still genuinely believe he has improvement to come off the marks he's on. And as it was when he was first at Jamie's, he goes to a new stable, there's a new regime, there's new training methods, there's new training schedules, etc. And trainers want to try and find improvement. If Ed just did exactly what Jamie did, and Jamie had just done exactly what Jeremy did, we'd have the same horses we had at Jeremy's. Now, while this is also going on, the horse gets that little bit older. And the horse has had, in Born to Finish's terms, his break when he went from Jamie to Ed was 258 days. And when he went to Windsor, we knew he was going to need that first run. So arguably, you can add in another 14 days on top of that. So he's had nearly six and a half months where he's been off. In fact, it's longer than that. It's what? Nearly 9 months off the track where he hasn't raced. He's never had a gap like that. And during that time, he's grown a lot. He's developed a lot. His nature to a degree has changed because he's seen him at the stable the other night. He's always been a lovely horse, but he just feels that little bit more calm. And I think now Ed is right. It is absolutely the time to step up in distance. I think his running's shown that. The way he's finished his races, and he's shown this all through his career. This isn't a new thing that's just happened since he's moved into Giles. His breeding says that, his running style says that, Jeremy said that, Jamie said that, Ed says that. These are guys who all know more than I know, and know that more than the collective of the ownership, with all due respect. The jockeys have said that. Spoke to Dougie Costello yesterday morning. Dougie, always, definitely would have been stepping up to 7 furlongs. He will be a lot better over that, possibly even a mile. David Egan came off and said that. Harry Bentley came off and said that. Pat Cosgrove jumped off the horse and said that. Will Cox came off and said that. Now, there's a couple. David Egan's a young jockey and Will Cox is an apprentice. But these guys ride horses every day, and Will Cox is riding a lot of good horses in the yard he's with, and he will know the difference between what feels like a sprint and what feels like a 7 furlong horse. Harry Bentley absolutely knows. Pat Cosgrave rides horses all the time in Godolphin. Quality race horses. These people know what they're talking about. It would be exceptionally negligent and arrogant of me to dispute this and argue it and go back and say, no, he's a 6 furlong horse and we're keeping him over 6 furlongs. I'm a big fan, a big follower of Mark Johnston as a stable and as a trainer. And Mark Johnston steps his horses up all the time as they get older, as they grow, as they get stronger. And he feels as though if a horse can stay but have a turn of foot to win, if a horse can win over a shorter distance and you can get them to stay further, you get a better racehorse. He's always done that. He does it all the time. And I think it's I've never been knowledgeable enough to try and impose this philosophy on the trainers. I mean, it's just not where we'd ever go. But you can understand now why. Surely it's got to be something that people can now not dispute anymore, that Born to Finish needs a proper opportunity and an opportunity given to Ed de Giles to have a period of time where he is told, look for 7 furlong races and let's campaign him over 7. If a 7 furlong race isn't available, don't go back to 6. Let's look at a mile. That is where we're going to go. Horses make fools of all of us. It may well be that everybody's wrong. And if everybody's wrong, at the end of 4 or 5 races, he's going to be due a break anyway. And then we can look to bring him back to 6 for the all-weather in the winter. But I am now, as a guy, and there's plenty of you owners out there will have had conversations with me where I've said, look, I'm keen to keep him at 6 because that's what's working. It's taken people persuading me and for me to go back and look right the way through this. I am not doing this for any other reason than I think it is 100% the right thing to do. De Giles is the right trainer. He's in the right place. Born to Finish has never looked better for me. Never. Now, a degree of that's going to be after he's had the time off and he's a year older. So he's that little bit bigger, but he looked phenomenally well when I seen him Friday night at Hamilton. Very, very well. And in his demeanour as a horse, he is a happy, content, calm racehorse. I am delighted with where he is. Yes, his last couple of runs, his last 3 runs, we could have done, well, take the Wolves out. 3 of his last 4 runs, we would have preferred not to have had them. But, you know, let's be honest. It took Jeremy Gascard 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 runs before he got a win out of Born to Finish. Jamie Osborne had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 10, 11. 2, 4, 6, 8. It was his 11th run with Jamie before he won a race. Ed de Giles isn't even halfway towards having the opportunity and the time that these guys had. And granted, he has got knowledge that they didn't have to work with. But Born to Finish arrived with Ed, higher handicap than he's been, and he's now working his way down. Any criticism of Ed is I'm not willing to accept. I'm not going to argue with people about it, but it's just not. It has no credibility. You know, it's not a thing. So 7 furlongs and Ed de Giles. That's where Born to Finish is going to be. Anybody who wants a conversation one-to-one, more than happy to take a phone call. Anybody who wants to just drop me an email, I will answer it. But please, I understand these videos are long and understand people don't have the time to listen to all of them. But the number of questions I keep getting answered, it's very difficult to answer it properly without using some time. Believe me, I'd rather be doing something else. A Sunday morning, I'd rather do something else if I could. But I have a commitment to you guys as a group of owners to try and give you the right information. And if I keep, you know, questions are welcomed, but please not the questions that we've just answered unless you have some sort of rationale, logic or knowledge that needs to be taken into account in conjunction with what we're talking about. But there'll be 7 furlongs next. Ed's hoping to confirm a couple of options in the next few days. There aren't masses of options, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because it kind of focuses the mind on where you want to go. There are options, just not as many as we'd like. But that's also the case with 6 furlongs at the moment. He's at a strange rating level to get too many opportunities. We will find opportunities. Ed will get him prepared properly. And hopefully we will see Born to Finish doing what he does well. Thank you.